good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, depending on where you are streaming from on today. I want to take this opportunity to welcome everyone that's logging in. I see you guys are logging in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I want you to tag, to share, to invite someone on this morning for this conversation. We are about to have a great time. Good morning, Sister Barbara. Welcome. I see you. Tell us where you are streaming from on this morning. Welcome, Sophia. I see you. I see you. Tag and share. Invite someone into the conversation on this morning. I'm also going to be tagging and sharing on this morning because there is a word that needs to be shared. We are getting ready to unpack some great things on this morning. I want to give you guys a few minutes. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning from Virginia. Good morning, prophetess. Thank you for streaming on this morning. Bless the Lord. Bless the Lord. Bless the Lord. Bless the Lord. And if you are ready, I see you. Good morning, Shade. Good morning, Evangelist. I see you. I see you. I see you. Good morning from Jamaica. Now, if you are ready, I want you to put in the chat that you are ready for this conversation. Good morning from New York. Welcome, welcome. Brooklyn is in the house on this morning. God is up to something great, and today will be I'm going to say, our final episode until the month of May. And you guys are in for some amazing things for the month of May, because if you guys are paying attention, you will realize that over the last 5 episodes and even today's episode, we've had the women coming on to share their story. Now, for the month of May, we're going to have the men. May is dedicated to the men. And I tell you, the stories that you're going to hear, minds are going to be blown. But most importantly, lives are going to be changed. All right. So I don't want to delay the time anymore. Send this message. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and share this with someone. Don't miss this message on this morning. So I want to take this opportunity to just introduce this woman of God who will be sharing on this morning. Her story is very unique, and I remember the first time I heard just bits and pieces of her story. I was on Clubhouse once again in Prophetess Michael's room, and I heard bits and pieces of what she had to share. And then I started to follow her even on social media. And then I started to understand a little bit more about who she is and what she is about in this season. And I want to welcome here on stage, I want to welcome Charmaine Dollar. Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure to be here with you.
Awesome, 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 awesome. So I want you to just go ahead and tell everyone that is listening in just a little bit about you. Introduce yourself a little bit for us before we start to unpack your story.
Yes, ma'am. So my name's Charmaine. I am currently in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a single mom to an almost 12-year-old. And I love Jesus. I'm a business owner and author. I am a survivor of human trafficking. I just love to serve people. So my biggest thing is just being able to do God's work through service, through evangelism, through everything that He's called me to do. Of course, the road has been different because when you pick up your cross to follow Christ, it's there's no direct way, right? Like you don't know the path. So I'm just grateful to be here and alive to tell the story. You're muted. You're muted.
So you said something, and I just want to get right to it. You said that you're an author, and but you also said something. I don't know how many persons caught what she said. She said she is the survivor of human trafficking. And I want you to just share with those who are listening in, explain to them just a little bit about what exactly is human trafficking.
Okay, so pretty much human trafficking is the big umbrella for a lot of illegal trafficking that happens nationwide and, of course, internationally as well. And pretty much I fall under the umbrella of sex trafficking because I was forced into doing sexual acts for finances for the trafficker. Pretty much there's an exchange made, of course, with someone who's the buyer, and then there's the trafficker who's the seller, and then there's me. And pretty much I had been groomed for a little while before things happened, but pretty much it's illegal. It's illegal to exchange intercourse for services for money, and so that's pretty much just a general definition of that.
Right. And I love the way you broke it down because, truth be told, this is something that we see a lot. But if we can be honest, a lot of people, they ignore it. We've
Yes.
seen on the news a lot of children are going missing. I saw a video recently of a mother who literally just handed her daughter over to a guy in a car, and that's also a part of the sex trafficking. So it is something, especially in a season now where desperation is at an all-time high. People are doing anything for money.
Yes.
So you have parents who are literally selling children, and it's not just parents. You have, I don't know the name of it. I know you will correct me, but you have people who literally they recruit. I don't know if they're called recruiters, but they literally recruit
Yes.
young girls,
Yep.
young boys, and they sell them off. So you have parents who are saying, "I've not seen my child in so long." The child disappears, and that's it. But we don't talk about it. The church doesn't talk about it. People who experience it are afraid to come forth. But I'm just so happy that you are on today to share your story of sex trafficking. And I want to just go ahead. Good morning, Sister Mona. I want to just go ahead now and let us just go into the conversation. I want you to tell me a little bit about your upbringing. How did you grow up? Because we want to transition to how you got into sex trafficking.
Yeah, of course. So I talk about it a little bit in my book, but coming up, I was just mostly me and my youngest brother in the house of six kids, and we were the youngest. We stayed the longest. So my parents, of course, when we were young, they were addicted to crack cocaine. So we spent a lot of time raising ourselves. Unfortunately, I remember we used to, and people say, the struggle's real and you got it from the mud and all of that. But there's so many hard beginnings. And for me and my siblings that were present, we used to have to eat cereal with water, right? When people make jokes about wiping with newspaper, we did that because my parents were addicted to drugs. And so we didn't have the resources because of their addictions to be able to have better quality things. So a lot of our upbringing was roach infested. It was drug related. It was, honestly, my parents, it was so bad. There would be times where my parents, we got public assistance, food stamps and stuff. At the time, they were papered, right? At that time. And my parents, they used to get all the food with the food stamps. They would buy meat with the food stamps. They would sell the meat for the money, and the money would go to their crack addiction. And then at the end of the day, we're at a food pantry getting powdered milk. I don't even know if you guys have ever had powdered milk. Just don't try it. Okay, powdered milk, add water. I don't recommend it.
We do.
Um,
We've had it in Jamaica.
it was crazy. Because of that, I just was like, I'd never have that again. But it just was a lot. It was a lot. I had parents that were physically there, from time to time, but emotionally unavailable. So there were a lot of things that I didn't get nurture wise because my parents grew up rough. They raised us up rough. Nobody really said I love you. Nobody really hugged you. Nobody really cared about nurturing whether you were creative or even spiritually. Like I was and still am a prophetic dreamer, and my parents didn't know how to help me because they weren't prophets, right? They didn't know how to be like, hey, I'm going to help you. I'm going to understand. I'm going to try to understand. It was just like we only had a form of godliness in church.
My God.
Life was different after. So I yeah, I wasn't one of the little girls that had a father that, gave me flowers or took me places. I just didn't get that. And I think my dad was one of those men that he worked so much, and then like seeing his father work, that his thing was, if I work, that's enough because I'm providing. And
Right.
so a lot of his stuff was like a money exchange. Like he was just like he would exchange money for time, right? So if anything was needed, he would just give money to it, and even if it wasn't much, it was kind of just to like get you off of his back. But unfortunately, I was one of those children that I wanted time, right? I really cared about time. I cared about you taking me somewhere, sometimes daddy daughter thing, because I'm his only daughter. I have a brother who is from his previous marriage who just turned 50. And then I have three other brothers from when from my mom and one he had with my mom. But I just, I don't know. Like I didn't really get the sense of family. Our families are so divided, especially maternally, especially maternally. My grandmother's side of the family very divided. Even till this day, everybody has their own. Nobody practices forgiveness, so you know how that goes when you have an aunt with your brother, literally, and there's no forgiveness. It's just like you. There's nothing you can do right because they won't forgive you, no matter how big or small it is. And so, just really battling a lot of things on the bloodline that I understand now that I
Right.
didn't as a child. But the crazy thing about being a deliverer for your bloodline is that the enemy, like, I almost died a couple of times when I was growing up. House fire. I was bit by a black widow. When I went in the hospital, they told me I wasn't supposed to make it. They were like, "We don't even know how you're not poisoned right now as much as you should be." And I can only say it's God. I can only say it's God. Y'all, like he tried to get me before I got here. My mom had been doing drugs for a long time, so she smoked crack with all of us. Except for her last pregnancy, I believe. So like they expected us to have some deformities. They expected us to have cerebral palsy. They expected us to have all these issues, and we didn't. And even in my mom's sin, God
Woo.
covered us.
Listen, this is so
Yeah.
good. This is so good. I hope you guys are
Yeah.
listening. And this is mind blowing. Like you literally grew up and you saw your parents being involved in drugs and even before you were born because doctors expected you and I guess your siblings to have deformities because your
Mhm.
mom was involved in crack cocaine, you said, and
Yep.
smoking and
Yep.
everything. My God. So now you said something and I love it because most of the persons that we bring on they have a similar story to tell because one of the things that I see is that most of the persons who are coming on are literally like the Joseph for their family because they have been to hell and are still going through hell. But one thing remains true, they're not giving up. They
Right.
are not giving up. I know there are so many parts to your story, but I want to
Yep.
turn a little bit to focus on after your parents, you grew up selling the drugs, you had no food because they would rather to take that money to buy drugs instead of buying food.
Right.
So then you grew up, and then how did that affect you and the decisions that you made that led to possibly the sex trafficking?
Whew. So it's crazy because I didn't find out my dad used to traffic women until I was trafficked. So talk about bloodline, okay? Him and my uncle were pimps. And I didn't find out until I was out there. I guess he felt safe enough to tell me when we were in similar predicaments, with the justification of, hey, I at least made sure that the girls had some money or whatever. And I remember that conversation clear as day. But I'll say this, I think for me, knowing that like all of this happened, it opened a door, right? The rejection from childhood and everything, it opened a door. And when doors are open, you don't get to control what comes through those doors. And so from that moment on, the rejection I got from my father, I had problems with men. Like I never looked at a man the same. I think that for me, growing up, as I became a teenager, as I graduated high school, I just saw all of my relationships as transactional. I'm like, if they don't have anything to offer me, there's no point because that's all I've been shown. Um, Especially with men, like they don't want much from me, or whatever. And so going through that promiscuity, I lost my virginity at 16 to a 22-year-old man. That's pedophilia, right? Let's just open the door to pedophilia and just perversion. And so, of course, at 16, I didn't see it as pedophilia because I didn't have a language for it. I didn't really invest in my relationship with God. I didn't really see that growing up. My parents were good at church, but relationship, you didn't really see it. There was no fruit of it. So, yeah, so that door of pedophilia was open. The rejection was already there. And rejection is a strong man. Okay. Like, I don't know if people know, but rejection is a strong man. So a lot of stuff is birthed out of rejection. A lot of stuff that you probably wouldn't even think that is birthed from rejection. Rejection is a strong foundation that has to be broken. And so, yeah, I mean, honestly, all of the relationships, I lost my virginity. And then from there, I saw men as objects, just as they saw me. And I couldn't really open myself up to love any man, because I realized that the man that I wanted to love me didn't like I thought he would. So, um, really, honestly, that's how I met the gentleman that took my virginity. He was actually a trafficker, and I did not know. So, um, looking back, I was walking to the store by myself. I was by myself. There was this group of men. The area we lived in, it was a lot of trafficking going on, but we kind of just kept our head down, mind our business. It was one of the days my parents were not there because after they came out of drugs, they were addicted to gambling. So my dad would get off work. He would work 12 hours. He would get off work. He would drive home. He would get showered up and everything. My mom was already dressed. They would be gone from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. I can't even make it up. Like my parents were gone all night at this casino, all night. And me and my brother were minors. We were home alone a lot. And because we were mature, my parents were like, you guys, you're fine, and not knowing that I lost my virginity in our house, right? With this man. Let's be honest, if we could just go here, okay? Because of the level of trauma, I was 16 still urinating in the bed. Let's go here. So when I had him come over, I had to clean up everything. I had to get the smell out of the room. I had to make sure. And he even noticed that, like, because of the repeated things, like he noticed like a hint of the smell and but that didn't change anything because once I stopped, it was just like, it still was beneficial. So what he did was he just started taking me to his house. One day I walked into his house and these two girls were, I'm telling you, topless. And they were in there, no bra and like underwear and these shoes, like heels. And they were changing really quickly. And I was asking him questions and I was just like, who are they? Like, why are they naked in your living room? And he's like, oh, those are my homegirls. Like they strippers. Like, they finna go out here and work. Not coming to find out these women were working for him. And it was just mind blowing. I didn't find that out till later, but I dealt with him for like 2 years. And so he went to prison. And then when I graduated high school, unfortunately, the city I lived in was so small. It just felt like that after a while. It's a smaller city than where I live now. And I ran into him on the train. And I just didn't have the words to say because even though he never put me out there, it was a grooming process because I was 16 when I met him. And so I didn't stay long enough to actually be put out there. But he just like, it was so, he was a pedophile. He was a pedophile, because the way he looked at me was not as I was a child. It was if I was an adult woman. And when we had intercourse, he didn't treat me as a child. It was as if I was an adult woman. Um, I think about that and I'm just like, that's really sick. That's not okay.
It
You
is.
know? Um, so yeah, that was the door. He was the door. And even though I didn't end up trafficked through him, he was only one of many men that I dealt with. To think about it, almost every man that I've dealt with from my father on have been traffickers. It's just I didn't end up with every one of them.
Mm,
And so, yeah.
you know, I'm listening to your story, and I don't think people understand the magnitude of what it is that you are sharing, and even just the whole word about cycles. I just keep seeing that word.
Yeah.
And those who are listening in, I want you to pay attention to the patterns. I'm going to mute you just a little bit. I want you to pay attention to the patterns and the cycles that she's talking about, because if I've seen a situation before where there was one young man that he actually committed murder, right? He committed murder. He murdered his girlfriend and someone else. And after they started to assess everything, come to find out his dad was a murderer. And when his mother met the dad, the mother was I guess, like a missionary, and she met the dad in jail. And he was a murderer. So I cannot reiterate these things enough. There are things you spoke about, strongholds. There are things that are happening to us. There are literal curses and covenants that we have literally formed, we've come in agreement with. And I want you to hear me by way of the Holy Spirit this morning. It may not seem like it is affecting you right this very moment, but I'm telling you, if you live long enough, your children are going to experience these things. Your grandchildren are about to experience these things. And this is not me speaking negativity. The Bible tells us that curses pass down through generations. She never knew her father was a sex trafficker, and she was longing for and yearning for her father's love. And she ended up in the arms of men who were sex traffickers. These things are generational. And I don't know whose comment is that, but I saw the word open door. But it's, I want people to start closing doors. Thank you, Sister Mona. She said it's going to affect somebody in your bloodline. And she shares her story, one of wholeness. Let me say this. She has been sharing her story. She has podcasts that she's been on. She's an advocate. She has her nonprofit, and we'll talk about that. So she's a big advocate because she also has a child. And eventually, I'm pretty sure that she would want another child. So she has to break these curses. And last night when we were talking, she was saying to me, even on days when she does not feel like she wants to share her story, God is like, no, I need you to share your story. There are so many things that are happening in Christendom. There are so many things that are happening in the kingdom. There are so many people who are suffering in silence. And they have no advocate. They have no outlet. And if you are on this line on this morning and you are experiencing things, she was talking, and I want her to talk about maybe like some of the red flags. So those who are listening in, when the video is posted, somebody somewhere maybe may listen in, and you tell them what the red flags are, because there may be people who are like there, as you said, you were in the grooming process. But there are some girls who went past the grooming process and was actually sold. And there are some who never made it out. And we're going to talk about that. But I want you to share like some of the red flags that are there, because there are people who may be experiencing this and they don't even know that it's sex trafficking.
Absolutely. So one of the red flags, especially with him, was the fact that the girls, it was just like alarming to me that you would have women that are like not clothed in your house. And one of the things that I've learned just over the time, is that too loud? I don't know if the background noise is too loud.
You're fine.
Okay. So I one of the things is that I noticed the pattern with the men that I had come across was that they always had groups of women that they were in contact with. Um, and it was always an issue of so many women in their phone who would call them constantly. And it was more than just like, hey, this is what's going on. He would have to step outside and talk, especially if he didn't want me to know what he was doing. And it wasn't about like being with somebody else. It was necessarily like the situation of not wanting me to know what he was saying, because a lot of times these traffickers have girls that are in like kind of like have contact with them that are in a place of like somebody's always watching, but when he's not able to, somebody is, but they always come back to call and talk to him about what's going on financially. And so a lot of calls, a lot of things. I also like understand that they always look for an opportunity. So when you're by yourself a lot, carry something, protect yourself, make sure you're good, because traffickers look for women who are by themselves. And it's almost like the moment that I was by myself and my brother didn't go with me to the store is when I was approached. And so I noticed that like if I did have a male figure there with me, it would be less likely for them to approach right away, because a lot of men prey on women just in general, like, because a lot of them feel like, well, maybe a lot of women don't know how to protect themselves. Maybe because she's a woman and she's emotional and she's all of this and all that, she'll respond. And one thing I've learned is to always protect myself, because the issue has been, I'm sorry about the background noise. The issue has been that it's been so many instances, especially living here in Atlanta, where women have been taken. Women have been just by themselves. Like you'll hear a lot of stories when women are by themselves, and not necessarily in the evening. It happens in broad daylight now. I wasn't snatched in a van, right? But when things happen, I lived alone. I lived alone. And so once I finally moved out is when I got trafficked. And it was so crazy because the guy that I was dealing with at the time, he introduced me to that side of things, like making money that way. And it was desperation. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just really, so it was the thought of like I was gonna get the money and I didn't, right? Like, so it kept me in this cycle. And now I never used drugs. I never used harsh drugs when I was out there, but I was you could pretty much say a functioning alcoholic, because I drank every day. I didn't drink it with juice. It was like straight. I just couldn't do it in my right mind. I remember crying so much from it. But definitely be aware of your surroundings. Definitely make sure you know who your friends are. I tell people this all the time. Make sure you really know who your friends are, because I've watched a lot of instances and know people who've been portrayed by friends with a trafficker. Like the friend literally told the trafficker where their friend was, where they were, just all kinds of things that shouldn't have been told. And so you want to make sure that you know who you're dealing with. When it comes to your safety, I always share a location with somebody, like a friend that I'm staying with. I at least share my location with her, so that if I am out and about and something's going on, she'll know where I am. Because you just never know. And even though I have been out of trafficking for almost 13 years, you just never know, right? And so I always make it a point to protect myself. But always protect yourself, ladies, gentlemen, too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Have something with you. Um, and always, and like with women though, women make up majority of the human trafficking rings. So definitely make sure that you're watching your kids. If you have children, do not let them go with everybody. I just watched that Nickelodeon Quiet on Set, and a lot of these parents let their children sit with grown men, communicate with grown men, by themselves, emails, phone calls, text messages, even though they worked together, these were pedophiles they were dealing with. And you just never know. And no amount of money is worth it. So yes, use your gift of discerning of spirits when your child, your daughter, your son says, hey, this is my friend, this is their dad, this is their mom. Because let's be honest, a lot of stuff is starting to happen in-house anyway. I know girls who were trafficked because of their grandmothers and their parents, and it's not even an outside stranger all the time now, right? And so, yeah, just be aware of your surroundings. Make sure you know who your friends are. Protect yourself. That's what I always say. Make sure you just handle your business and get indoors as much as you can, especially if you know you live in a city where trafficking is prevalent.
Right. And yesterday I saw a video where there was this father who became concerned about his daughter because she had always made good grades, and he started to realize that she wasn't as happy anymore, and her grades were really really suffering. So he decided, you know what, I'm gonna follow her to school one day just to see what was going on. And he followed her maybe like for a day, and he noticed that when she went on the bus driver was whispering in her ears. So he started to notice that. So then he never said anything. He decided, you know what, I'm going to keep watching. And then when he realized, what happened was the bus would drop students to school, but his daughter and a few others would not come off the bus. And he followed that school bus to wherever the guy went with these young girls, these babies on the bus. And that's when he called the police. We hear these stories all the time. We think these stories are not real. They are made up until it hits our home. And when it hits our home, we're going to say, you know what? It's kind of too late now. And I want you to share, Charmaine. So you you eventually found out about the cycles, even with your dad, right? And I want you to share with those who are listening another thing that you found out about another family member who was also involved in sex trafficking. And I want you to share with those who are listening what happened and who that person is.
Okay. Yes. So I wasn't the only one. I have a sister that's deceased now, and she was trafficked at 16. It started off as like a situation where she was a runaway. My sister pretty much raised herself. My mom had been on and off drugs for years. So my mom was still on drugs off and on when my sister was a teenager. They argued and fought a lot. So my sister never stayed home. She left, and the streets raised her. I mean, that's what you can say. Like, the streets raised her. She met people. She got caught up. And so she actually ended up trafficked because of a woman she befriended who was her friend. And the friend was connected to the trafficker who sent this girl to recruit. This girl was a recruiter. So not only you pretend to be my friend, you're a recruiter. And I don't even know. So my sister ended up, they made it like a family situation where everybody's like close knit and whatever. My sister's 16 when she started doing that. And so she got in, and of course, it's not always the easiest to get out. Everybody's situation is different. And so with her, because they had so many people that were tight knit, she wasn't just able to run away because there was always somebody watching. It was him, it was a trafficker, and then he had a network of men that always like made sure the girls fell in line and did what they were supposed to do. And then you had her who had been with him the longest, the other lady, and she was the one who reported. If she saw something or something was going on with the girls, like she was more of an inside because she was doing it too. I guess, but they call them in that place, like the street term for it is a bottom. Your bottom is the one who is there, who knows the ins and outs, who most likely makes the most money out of all of them, until my sister did. So then jealousy came because now you have somebody that you recruited who is bringing in more money and more high-end clients, because that's what they call them. It's just My sister had from the story I was told with this, my sister had a millionaire client who wanted to marry her. And the marriage would have consisted her like not doing what she was doing. And so she got engaged. My sister got engaged. Um, and she told the girl she got engaged. So in that world, when things like that happen, they think of it as like you're stealing from them financially, like you've taken my money. Because once this man marries you, he's no longer going to be a client. He's no longer going to be, first of all, the highest paying client, because that's what he was. And my sister was on the run for 2 years. They were trying to find her for 2 years. My sister has two boys. And unfortunately, one of my nephews were burned with a cigarette, like by the trafficker. Like he'll never forget that. Like he's just, that's kind of stained in his memory because he was with her all the time. Um, and she's on the run for 2 years. I remember one day being at my cousin's house, and then we got a phone call from her trafficker, and he was looking for her. And I'll never forget these words. He said, and mind you, my sister, I have a sister that's living, knows her trafficker, knew him so much to where he called her number. And we happened to be at my cousin's house who took care of my nephews when my sister passed. And he told her like if she had the kids with her, he would kill them too. So my sister was on the run for 2 years. And then I would never forget, I got a phone call when I was a junior in high school, spring break. I was a part of a nationwide thing for obesity prevention down in California. So I was at an event. And you have that one person that never just calls back to back because they don't call all the time. And my brother called me. I mean, I had so many missed calls, so many missed calls. And they told me what happened. So my sister was a Jane Doe. She was murdered. She was a Jane Doe, so it was a homicide. A Jane Doe is, I don't know if everybody knows, but like when you have no identity. So they stripped everything from her. They took everything from her. She was naked, literally. Like this ain't even figurative. A couple found her overdosed because they pumped her with methamphetamine. They overdosed her to make it seem like she was some druggie that did that to herself. They found out, of course, it was somebody else, the homicide, because fingerprints and stuff at the coroner's office, like they can track all that. And so she was a Jane Doe. She passed in 2007. I'll never forget going to a coroner's office. Never been until that moment. But going back to being a prophetic dreamer, I was sitting on the bed. I was 16. I was 16. I was sitting on the bed, my mom, and I had told her about the dream I had. I'm like, Mom, somebody's getting ready to die. Like I saw the flower arrangements, and it's got to be close to you. I told her what happened. I just didn't know who. And so, unfortunately, that was my sister's arrangements. We just didn't know who. I never felt a grief so deep. Um, because when my mom missed my middle school graduation, my sister showed up, and so my sister, we knew she lived a fast life. I didn't know what she did until like I was old enough to understand it. Um, her and my mom had a not so great relationship. My mother lives with the regret of some things because my sister was looking for somewhere to live, and my mom told her she couldn't stay with us, and that was not long before she was murdered. And so even though she was on the run for 2 years, the guy that killed her, we actually found out a week after my book was published that we found out who the murderer was after 16 years of a cold case for 16 years. A week after my book was published, they called my mom and they told her, but then the murderer who was already dead, but check this out, that they didn't catch the trafficker or the girl. They caught the murderer. So he had somebody who did the dirty work. Like he had somebody who would kill the girls if needed, because there was another girl that ended up dead as well that we found out about later. And it's just sad. Like my sister had dreams of a better life. She wanted to be a better mom. She wanted to get clean. She took a lot of ecstasy and stuff. Being in that life, you stay up. You meet a lot of women out there that are on drugs heavy because the cocaine and the crack and all that keeps them up, and their traffickers put them on that. so that they can make the most out of everything. This is why, even though the movies talk about like girls that get snatched and things like that, like Taken, they do drug these girls. They drug these women because the reality is that it keeps them up all night. Um, and so my sister wanted a better life, and so when she tried to get out, her trafficker told her the only way out was 6 feet under, and unfortunately, that was the case. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Wow. So he literally just told her the only way out is death. And
yeah.
unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. And I offer my condolences to you. I know it's been a few years, but this is your sister that we're talking about, and I'm just so grateful that you made it out to tell this story. But there was one thing you said that it sent up my antennas, right? You said your sister had a you said your sister had a rich client. I want you to explain just a little bit about who these clients are, because are these clients like businessmen? What is it that they need? Because it has to be more than just sex. It had to be more than that.
So even I'll speak for myself. My experiences were businessmen, blue collar. They run Fortune 500 companies. I can't even make it up. It would be so serious that when some of the men were sent in, they still were in their work suits. Married men, a big one. I mean, married men made up 80% of the clients. Most of the clients were married. Unfortunately, like it's sad, but so blue collar, married. Um, I met a few millionaires. It's about, I met a widower, and it's about some of it is about company. There would be men who would just like not want me to do anything physical with them. They wanted the company of just somebody to talk to. So I gave that in exchange for their money, because of course we had to do what we had to do. You would meet men who you could tell like were like really weird and like, pedophile, like, you know what I mean? Like there were just certain things I sensed about men. You meet all kind of men, but most of them were married and most of them were businessmen. So they didn't hurt for money. And a lot of them have been doing this for years. So it was nothing. They had some of these men had fetishes. So I met a lot of men, unfortunately, that preferred to have a black woman. So when I was cycled in, they knew the clients that wanted to see me because I was black. You know what I mean? And a lot of most of my clients were not black at all. And they had children, they had families, they had homes they built, they had businesses they run, they had nice cars, like houses that were extremely beautiful. And you just would never think. And so the ones that you don't think, let's go here. Police officers. I never did anything with a cop, but I've had cops approach me when I was in that, long as they weren't seen on the streets. Of course, I'm just like I just prefer not to have a cop to do that with, and it backfires later. But they were involved in some of that. So not all cops are like that, but there were some that on their off days they wouldn't look like a cop, but they had a badge on them, and they were into the trafficking part of it. And it's sad because, people look to law enforcement to protect, but in those instances, I met a few law enforcement men that they're a part of it. So, yeah, it's some of it's just company. Some of it's just, um, they're not happy in their marriages for whatever reason. I didn't ask, but a lot of times it was just a matter of like time, just wanting to spend time with somebody new because that's what they chased after, not being with the same person. If I can stay married to, I had a guy tell me like if I could stay married to my wife and just see other women in this way, like I'm cool. Like I don't have to get a divorce. Like, and she doesn't ask me where my whereabouts are. Like she just never has, and that's just how a lot of them played it off. And I don't know, but it was mostly businessmen and married men. Absolutely.
Wow. Like, wow, wow, wow. That's the only thing that I can say. Wow. Because a lot of this stuff that you're saying is stuff that I never knew. A lot of this is new to me. You know
Right.
what I mean? And but I'm just so happy that you're here, because this there has to be a level of awareness. It make the Bible tells us that without knowledge the people perish. And you are giving us information this morning, and I'm sure those who are listening in, they're going to become so alert now, even as they go out. You heard her talking about, like literally, like they're watching you, depending on the area that you're in when you're living alone. Her sister tried to get out, but they tracked her down for 2 years before they took her out. The level of persistence that they have. And I'm literally like, it's like they are probably watching even to this moment. 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, they probably have, as you said, and you said they have a network. So they're probably watching young babies who are going out now, and it doesn't matter if it's male or female. Your kid is walking to school every day, and there might just be a guy that has been watching your child for 2 years, waiting for the right time. They see where this child lives. They knew your mom and your dad were not around. You literally were a target. Your sister was a target. But I thank God. But I thank God that you are here and you made it out. And we want to just transition to the Hope Haven Coalition. And I want you to tell people what birth from this, because you didn't just birth a book. You also have I want to say a foundation or a nonprofit. So tell the people about your nonprofit.
Yes, so I have a nonprofit, Hope Haven Coalition Incorporated, and it's really just something God gave me to build. Um, when God delivers you from something, it's not to say that you're always mandated to do that thing, but in my situation, absolutely. So we're going to Hope Haven is based on a faith foundation. It's based on Christ. It's dedicated to my sister, because she doesn't have the voice anymore to be able to even advocate for herself if she were going to. It's for all of the people that are silent right now, who don't want to speak for themselves. It's advocacy, it's mentorship, it's houses that we will build. And the way God showed me was, we'll build safe houses domestically and internationally, to rescue, for where I'm called, to women and young girls that are trafficked or at risk of being trafficked, or even those who have come out of trafficking and need somewhere to feel safe and get their life back on track. So right now, we're just putting some things together on housing, on getting some things established, because it won't just be in Georgia. Um, it's a big deal though, because you're talking about rescuing women out of human trafficking rings. And people are like, "Are you sure God told you to do that?" I'm like, "Listen, I had to ask him myself, because I was like, oh, Lord, that's a homicide mission, okay?" Listen, but God covers us, and not everybody's called to the same thing, but literally, I couldn't think of another way to do it. I told God, like, I dedicate my life to serving his people and doing the work that he wants me to do. So if he wants me to go, then I'll go. If he wants me to build, then I'll build, because to know that he kept my life so that I can save another, so that I can tell the story, so that I can give honor to him through it all. I'm just willing to do that. So right now we're in the foundation of it, getting things together, but we will build safe houses. We'll provide resources and programs, but it won't be traditional. We will host families, not just single women, because most times there are some mothers that get trafficked. And so even if the mother is looking to have her children with her and she's able to, it'll be a safe place for all of them. So we're looking at single family houses, multi family houses, things like that, just things that places, non-disclosed areas for the safety of the people, the trafficked ones, and their families to be safe. A lot of times, you know, those people are like property to the person that's trafficking them. They own them, and then you go to international borders, it can get more intense. But we'll be a safe haven for them. We'll be a place of like refuge where they can really just breathe, and everything will be provided for them. I'm not a 501c3. I'm looking into some other tax brackets because there's too many stipulations on faith-based organizations with 501c3. I just don't want to be muzzled by the government. So I said, listen, Lord, I can't tell my story without you, and I won't, and they won't get me to. Okay. So we will offer some things for them when they're getting back on their feet, work based, with my commercial cleaning business that'll be integrated to be able to have them learn how to be in society, but they'll always have somebody with them, where it's like they're never alone because, you know, like I said, the women being alone, that's a target. It's an opportunity. So um, it's a really big project. It's huge. And you know, I'm grateful to God that He trusts me with it. So thank you so much.
That part right there, and I'm like, amen, amen. And I want to do something even today for those who are listening in. You know, I've never done this over the last couple of episodes, but I really do feel compelled to do it on her book. As you guys can see, you guys know I always have my copies of anybody that comes on, whatever it is that they are doing. I have a copy of their book, I have a copy of whatever it is. And I want for those who are listening in today, she is in the process of transition, right? She's in the process of transition. And I want those who are able to, I want you to buy a copy of her book. This is how we can even be a help for her and just to encourage her. See, I'm like, before I even said anything, somebody said in the chat, how can we donate? And I literally started to type your Cash App, because God is about to do something great. Tell me what your Cash App is. I want to put it up on the screen for those who want to be a blessing, whatever it is that you have. I don't, if we have to learn how to sow seeds. Learn how to sow seeds. Give me your Cash App and then I'll share a little bit on that. What's your Cash App?
Okay, so my Cash App is Hope Haven Coalition. Is $ Hope Haven Coalition.
All right, so I'm gonna put that on the screen. Hope Haven Coalition. Hope I double check that and let me know if that's correct.
Okay.
That's it.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome sauce. So that's her Cash App right there. I want you guys to be a blessing because even those who were online when I was here for my birthday, the Lord has me doing these unusual things. The Lord will literally have me sow into people's wedding. Oh, you want to get married? Sow into somebody's wedding. You want your nonprofit? Sow into somebody's nonprofit. The Bible said, whatsoever we sow, we are going to reap. Be a blessing to this woman of God. I've never asked for anybody to sow a seed. Where she located? She is currently in Atlanta, Georgia right now. So, but she's in the process of transitioning. And we can talk a little bit about that off air. For Prophetess, I see your question. If there's anything that you want to ask me, we can talk about it off air, because there are some things we don't want to share on here. But she's in the process of transitioning. I want you to be a blessing to her. I don't care if it's $1. I don't care if you want a copy of the book. This young woman has been through so much since she's been a tiny tot. And it takes a different level of courage, boldness, just to come on to say, in spite of the fact that many are hiding it, I'm not going to be afraid. I made it out because of God, and I'm going to share my story. She has literally seen her mom being in drugs, her dad in drugs, her sister died, but she's saying, you know what? I'm going to stand up. God saved me, and I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. Some people say, listen, I want hand-me-downs. She's like, no, I'm going to share my story in a book so that people can support the book. And when you support the book, you're supporting Hope Haven Coalition, and you are supporting her. Do you have a daughter or a son?
I have a daughter.
You have a daughter, right? And we are believing that God is going to keep breaking these curses. And I know you know, and I know you've been seeking help and deliverance and everything, but I want you guys to keep her name in prayer. Keep her name in prayer, because her daughter will not go through what her sister went through. Her daughter will not go through what she went through. So I want you to be a blessing. I'm not seeing the comments, but I want you to be a blessing. If you are going to be a blessing, I want you to put it in the chat that just me, or I'm going to be a blessing. I'm going to sow, even if it's $1, $5, whatever it is. If you need a copy of the book, just let me know. Let me see the comments. I don't solicit. I'm only led to do this as the Holy Spirit is leading. I want you guys to be a blessing to her. I'm definitely going to be a blessing to her, right? And I'm going to share some of her information on the screen. Her book is From Prostitution to Promise, and this book can be found on Amazon. Her Cashapp is on the screen, and I'm going to be sharing her Facebook and her Instagram. Her Facebook is Charmaine Dollar, and her Instagram is Hope Haven Coalition. Take a screenshot of it. Follow her ministry. You may know someone who may want
The
to come.
Facebook is Charmaine Latrice. I don't know if it's the old, because that's an old account. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So her Facebook is Charmaine Latrice, right? Latrice, right? So I want you guys to go ahead. I want to be a blessing. I want to be a blessing. I see you guys. I see you, Chiffon. I want to be a blessing. I see you, Tamara. Her Cash App is on the screen. I can't see who the Facebook user is because I only see Facebook user. Can you drop your name, Facebook user? The Lord is doing a great thing. And as you prepare to transition, woman of God, I pray that the Lord will bless you bountifully and abundantly for the work that you are doing and the work that you continue to do, because you and I both know, right? Yeah, you're on mute. So you and I both know that this is not easy. And we spoke about this last night. And thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being a blessing. Even if I have to buy another copy of your book or something, I'm definitely going to be a blessing and sow a seed. And if there's anything that we can do for you, let us know. If there's anything that we can do for you and your daughter, let us know as you prepare. There's a great work that the Lord is going to do in you and through you. And those who are sent, I see somebody said they already sent you the Cash App. Thank you, Sister Paulette. Thank you for being a blessing. I thank God for your life and even every seed that is sown to you in this season. May the Lord multiply. May the Lord give you clarity, because I know you've been seeking the Lord for clarity. And those who are on the line, I literally, if you can, it does not take anything to drop a word of encouragement. I want, if you are on the line, I want you to drop a word of encouragement for this woman of God. I want her to know that she has a support system, because this can be a lonely road. And sometimes it can feel like, you know what, I'm literally just following God, but I'm alone. I feel alone. You may be alone. You may feel lonely, but you're not alone. And whatever it is that this ministry can do, and other ministries that are connected here, whatever we can do to be a blessing to you, we are going to be a blessing. So if you guys want to just drop any word of encouragement in the chat as we wrap up on this morning, I just want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story so ably on this morning, because there are many persons who may watch this and just say, you know what, I have to be more vigilant for my kids. I have to do better. I have to break curses, because your story is it's so many things. Sex trafficking, it's talking about generational curses, it's talking about cycles, it's talking about the loss of a family member through this. You speak about the network, you're exposing the network, and God be glorified in everything that you do. So, once again, I just want to say thank you. Any final thoughts before we go? You can unmute and share any final thoughts.
No, I'm just thank you again for just having me and just being led of the Lord to have me on as a guest. I'm grateful for this.
Amen, amen, amen. I see the comments are coming in. May God continue to give you strength. Be strong. He will never leave you and forsake you. This is amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you guys so much for your words of encouragement. And we are about to wrap up. So if you want to get that last comment in, go ahead and drop that final comment as we are closing out. And I just want to go ahead and give a few announcements. Keep in mind that we are breaking for the month of April. So get some rest, get recuperated, get some sleep, because I know for my Jamaicans it's pretty early. Get some sleep. And I want you guys to prepare for the month of May. We're bringing on the men in the month of May. We have Prophet Shaw that is coming on to share his story. We have Prophet, I think his name is Trey, that is coming on. He just released a book. You know, he was sharing, the book is titled How a Warlock Stole His Wife. And his story is powerful too. I literally just got a copy of that book because I like to support everybody that is coming on. So I just bought a copy of his book. Another Facebook user said, keep pushing. Sister Paulette says, you're not alone. Your story will be shared everywhere. Prophetess Apostle Beverly said, my sister Charmaine, what the enemy meant for evil, your heavenly Father has turned it for your good and for the generations to come. Be blessed. Denise Malcolm says, God is your strength. Breaking curses like mother, like daughter. There we go. That's what it's about. And that baby girl will not walk in the things that she has endured. And we give God thanks and praise for that. So we are definitely signing off now. And I thank God for those who are streaming in once again. I will see you guys in May, the first Saturday in the month of May. In the meantime, all the episodes are on YouTube. Send somebody to go follow the YouTube page. You can look for Shireen Black on YouTube. All the episodes are there. This is so informative. And that's pretty much it for today. God bless you all, and bye-bye.